Taco Palenque fans, we have something special for you. Try the Casero Taco now for only $2.75 Monday through Thursday. Flavor packed with premium sirloin rice and refried beans. Only at Taco Palenque. At participating locations for limited time, not valid for delivery. Other restrictions may apply.
From a highly secure network of top secret locations across North America, this is the Spurs Insider, brought to you by Taco Palenque. I'm your host, Mike Finger, joined as always by our panel of Express News Spurs beat writers, Tom Orsborn and Jeff McDonald, and sports editor Nick Talbot. We are coming to you the morning after a historic scoring effort by Joel Embiid, the morning before a showdown between Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, two of the leading candidates for Rookie of the Year. It's a big week. Tom, it's been a big week for you, traveling the Northeast up here with me out in the frigid cold. Where do you want to start this morning?
Well, never thought I'd see a Wilt Chamberlain record fall. And I don't know. The players, I'm not sure they grasp the meaning of what I just said, but it was something special for me, and I'm sure a lot of people around the NBA. It's just completely unstoppable, as Devin said last night. They threw everything at him, every coverage, multiple players. Victor did his best, and you just couldn't stop him. It was really something to see.
Victor Wembanyama scores 33 points, has a pretty good all-around game.
Yeah.
The Spurs hang in there against the Philadelphia 76ers, one of the best teams in the league this year. And up until basically the last couple of minutes, it's a close game. That's part of why the record fell, because Embiid had to keep playing because the Spurs were in it. And yet, Victor Wembanyama's doubled up in points, more than doubled up in points. And part of it is that might have been, we can get into this, that might have been the last night of the minute restriction, but he finished out with 28 minutes, could not be out there on the floor as long as Embiid was. But you talk about the difference between a prospect, a one of the best young players in the league, and just an absolute MVP candidate. You saw that in that game. Embiid the Spurs had no answers for him. I'm not sure any team in the league had answers for what he was doing last night.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed. Score 100 and get back to me.
Well,
it could happen.
The way the media overreacts these days, the way people are so quick to move on to the next thing. Within an hour, well, I guess it was an hour and 10 minutes after that game ended, there was already some idiot who went to a microphone, just in the way our culture is now. It's always the next thing, always something better. This idiot goes to the microphone and says, someday that Victor Wembanyama might break Wilt's record of 100. I mean, what does that guy know? It was just Joel Embiid who's the one who said that.
Yeah. Embiid he broke Wilt Chamberlain's 76ers record, but it wasn't even the record for a Philadelphia basketball team, because Wilt got his 100 for the Philadelphia Warriors. So it's not even a city record.
Right.
Not that impressed.
Yeah, but I mean, it's to hear a player like that, who is an MVP, might be MVP this year, at the top of his game, and to say sort of matter-of-factly that this kid who he just played for the first time, 20 years old, like credibly, not facetiously, like he seriously was suggesting that there could be a point in the future when that kid scores 100 points. That just speaks to the respect that he's already earning in this league.
The video of Joel walking past Victor in the layup line or whatever and sizing him up and then doing the sign of the cross on himself was pretty special. I enjoyed that.
I was talking to someone on press row last night about that, and about how there are just moments in the game where, Embiid, who's a 7-footer, is looking up at Victor, and it's like that. There's no way that the 7-footer should look like that next to somebody. And I almost think it's like like we know for sure that the Spurs measured Victor Wembanyama in his socks without his shoes on, and they insist, and Victor insists that he's 7'3.5", and it's almost like I don't doubt that as much as rethinking every other measurement in the league, because the other guys aren't really 7 feet, because he looks so much taller than 7-footers. I don't know. It's just
I just thought of this. I wonder if they've measured him recently.
He might still be.
Maybe he's taller now than he was 6 months ago.
He could be.
Like it wouldn't be unheard of for a 19-year-old, 20-year-old person to grow an inch or half an inch.
Right. Yeah.
Giannis grew after he got in the league.
Yeah.
Very plausible.
Plausible. We're Tom and I are coming home at the end of this. We're typing this on Tuesday, recording this on Tuesday. It'll hit your digital players on Wednesday, as always. Jeff covered the first half of this trip. It was a 9-day East Coast swing for your local cagers. Basically as long as a half of a rodeo trip on either side. I guess this would be a good time to look back on the whole thing, because we saw a little bit of everything. We saw another victory in Washington, where Victor sat out the night before, maybe his last time having to sit out one half of the back-to-back. But that Washington game was a nice little diversion from the misery. You got to see Victor Wembanyama play really well in a game, which we've seen a lot before. You saw Jeremy Sohan probably at his best in the closing minutes of a game, throughout a game. He scored 23 points and really came up huge down the stretch against a admittedly awful Washington Wizards team. But another one of those moments in the middle of a pretty tough season where you can see kind of what the Spurs are trying to build there. But Jeff, you can go back to your part of the road trip. Anything that lingers for you from that, or stuff that you watched on TV when you were back?
It feels like so long ago is the one thing that I would point out. I mean, I don't know, that doesn't matter to anybody, but it struck me like NFL teams played 2 playoff games in the span the Spurs are on the road. Like the Packers played twice and the Bucks played twice. Like it was just a long trip. Where do you want me to start? Like, I don't know. I could talk about the trip as a whole. Like when it started, you thought this maybe is a chance for them to pick up not just a win, but numerous wins. Like they were playing really well heading into the trip. Atlanta was not. You thought like maybe they have a chance to get one in Atlanta, and then they're down 35 points in the first half, and come back to make that a fourth quarter game, but they don't win that game, and then they sit Victor in Charlotte, which is one you thought they would otherwise win, and lose that one by 4. And then they're down late against Washington. And I remember I was flying back that day while you guys were covering that game. And I remember I was just following the score of that game online on my phone. And it struck me like this is going to, because I'm always thinking about the podcast and what I'm going to say on it and what we're going to talk about. Look, when they were looking like they were losing to the Wizards.
Seems like you'd have better. If that's true, it seems like you'd be better on the podcast if you put thought into it. But
just think about if I didn't. Anyway, it looked like they're going to lose that game to the Wizards, and then I'm thinking like this is going to be a jury podcast. Like we're going to have to, kill them a little bit. Like what an awful, maybe the worst road trip week of the year if they go winless on this thing. And then in the span of 5 minutes, they turn around and win that game, and they look better in Philadelphia. And all of a sudden, you can feel good about the road trip, even though you didn't pick up a couple of wins. You just picked up the one win. So, yeah. Aside from like the first half in Atlanta and maybe parts of that Wizards game, which you guys saw more of than I did, it seems like they had a pretty good trip, and they seem to be trending in the right direction as far as being a competent basketball outfit.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a decent summary. It's been, I believe, a month, and this might turn out to be an important fact if this is led into the Spurs decision making at all. But I believe it's been a month since Victor's last rolled ankle thing, and Greg Popovich for a couple of weeks now has sort of suggested that the end of this trip could coincide with the end of the minutes restrictions. And it also coincides with another showdown between Chet and Victor at the Frost Bank Center on Wednesday night. And I think it makes sense that if he can get the go-ahead from the medical team, and I'm not sure why he wouldn't, because it's not like he is quote-unquote injured. He's in injury recovery, rest, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a good chance we could see Victor Wembanyama play more than 30 minutes against Chet Holmgren on Wednesday night.
Yeah,
he's been creeping up to that. Like it was 25, and then it was 26. And then on that trip he started, he was playing 27, and then by the end of the trip he was up to 28. And I know that still doesn't seem like a lot, like 1 minute at a time, but it's not that big of a jump from there to 30 at this point. Yeah. Like it almost seems like they've been building towards that already.
Yeah. What was sort of compelling for a few minutes last night in Philadelphia was he starts the fourth quarter. I believe he had 20 minutes heading into the fourth quarter. And so it might have been 21. And you figure he's going to play 3 here to start the quarter, which they've done before, and then sit and then bring him back for 3 or 4 to finish so he can get to his 27. But they kept him on the floor all the way until the 5-6 minute mark. So he got up to 28, and the Spurs kept the game close. And so if it would have been inside 10 points, inside 7-8 points in the last 2 minutes, you wonder if he would have been able to take the floor for those last 2 minutes. I don't think he would have.
No,
but they ended up going for, instead of splitting it up, just get those minutes on the first part of the fourth quarter, and that'll be the game. But it almost, if the Spurs could have hung in just a little tighter until the last couple of minutes, I wonder if Pop would have been tempted to put him back out there. He probably wouldn't have, but it would have been interesting to see.
He's strictly adhered to the medical staff's recommendation on this. Been very disciplined with it, I think. So I don't think he would have come back in. But back to that Wizards game, they went on that 12-0 run and finished the game 22 with a 22-6 run. And everyone's saying, "What was the difference? What was the difference?" And they all pointed to defense. Well, the difference was Victor playing.
Yeah,
he came back in. 7 points during the closing minutes, 2 huge blocks, including that unbelievable 360 no-look rejection of Tyus Jones. I mean, he's the difference. It's just everyone's just itching to see him, get this restriction off him because he's playing so well, so efficiently.
Have we explained to the readers, listeners, and viewers why the Spurs have been doing this? Like, there still seem to be some people that are confused or not getting or not understanding why the Spurs are putting these restrictions on Victor when he's quote unquote not hurt.
Well, smart. It's a smart thing to do. He tweaked it twice. And then he had this, what they labeled as a sprain when he stepped on the ball boy's foot in Dallas, and the word out of the locker room is the more you do things like that, the more vulnerable you are to a serious injury. So it's a smart move. And, it actually started in Chicago in December. I think it's 12 games now that he's been on the restriction, and it's the smart, prudent thing to do with your franchise player.
You know how his nickname is the Alien for the things he does on the court at his size. I mean, that cuts both ways. Like his body is actually foreign to medical science, to sports science. Like I wrote a story. I went back to it this week just to read it. Preseason, or not the preseason, like before the draft, after the Spurs had got the number 1 pick, but before the draft. Talking to, just medical experts who've never examined Victor or have any inside knowledge, but just what would you do with a 7'5" freak of nature who plays like a guard, whose body is being asked to move in ways that, even the other 7-footers in NBA history Their bodies are not asked to move that way. And they all said, basically, we don't know. We don't know what his body will do. We don't know what it can handle and what it can't handle. Like it's worked out for him so far, but we don't know him. If you just look at him on paper, he's a stress fracture waiting to happen with all the bones and stuff. So when you read stuff like that, and the Spurs are hearing from a lot more medical people than I talk to, and a lot more people with intimate knowledge of Victor Wembanyama personally, who've actually seen his medicals and his pictures, as Pop likes to call them. So you can understand why when you're coming at it from that angle, we don't know what he's going to do. It looks like he could be injured at any moment. You can see why they're going to err on the side of caution anytime they're faced with that choice, especially in a season like this where you're not really gunning for the playoffs. You're just trying to get his feet wet in the NBA. And, I think it's prudent too to follow the science, so to speak. And if there's any question, to err on the side of caution. And that's what they've been doing. And it's not like they are not looking for ways to get him on the floor more, which is what I think we're going to see here in the next couple weeks, games and weeks and months.
Well, I think an important part of the phrase, think about the phrase erring on the side of caution. They might be erring.
Right. Right.
They might be. There are differences of opinion, even like Jeff said, in the medical community as to whether they need to be doing this or not. And so you can totally concede that maybe they're being too cautious. And in that case, that, again, that's erring. That's being too cautious. He could play more. But the thing is, if you're going to make a mistake on it, make this mistake of not playing him enough. It could be that he could be playing 35 a night, 38 a night, and be totally fine. That could be true. But you'd look really ridiculous as a franchise if you're pushing him during a season when you're not going to win more than 20 games, when you're not in a playoff push, and something terrible happens.
You go back to Kawhi, and there were other factors at play there. But the thing was with Kawhi is they thought he could play and he wouldn't, or thought he couldn't, and that quote unquote drove Kawhi away. So now you seem like you learned from that situation, and you be a little more extra cautious with your next star. I don't see how people can complain about that.
Yeah.
But they do.
Well,
there's the other thing.
The legitimate complaints are lifelong Spurs fan
yes.
in Raleigh or Charlotte or, in North Carolina that has been waiting all year to go see Victor Wembanyama play. The only time the Spurs visit Charlotte, and he's quote unquote quote healthy. You see him play the night before, you see him play the night after, and he looks great. And he doesn't suit up the one time you bought tickets. Like, I get that. I'm not gonna tell fans they shouldn't be disappointed
I agree.
by that.
My small lizard brain understands not playing on back-to-backs better than not. The difference between playing 26 minutes and 27 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I almost understand the back-to-back thing a little bit more to this point. Anyway, do you know who leads the NBA among NBA rookies? Do you know who leads the NBA in minutes played per game?
Oh, that's got to be Victor Wembanyama.
No, it'd be Brandon Miller.
Oh, okay.
30.5. Victor, even after a month of a restriction, is at 28.5. So it's 2 minutes difference.
Yeah.
2 minutes difference. It's not like Pop is just holding this guy back, and now he's not going to win the Rookie of the Year because he was on a minutes restriction for a month. He's still playing a lot of time compared to other rookies in the NBA.
Yeah. Yep. The awards discussion drives me crazy, but I guess people.
I know you got to give the people what they want, man. It's Chet versus Victor tomorrow/tonight, depending on when this is being listened to. I guess
we're still weeks away from the All-Star break, and it's just
but we're halfway through. Like it runs
the NBA podcast economy. Like, NBA podcasts would not exist nationwide without discussions of MVP in freaking December and January. We're talking about MVPs and Rookies of the Year, and there's just dumb awards. And but go ahead. Here you go. I'll let Jeff
It's
take the Rookie of the Year discussion here.
It's the sorghum of the podcast economy. It runs it.
There it is. So go ahead and.
I mean, I don't have any more
sorghum.
I don't have any more opinions on it than I did when we talked about it last time, or any different opinions. I mean, I think obviously it's going to be a Chet versus Victor race. Like I don't really think there's a third guy that's going to get in there. And man, I have a hard time. I have a hard time watching Victor play, especially recently, especially since he moved to center, and think, how is this guy not the Rookie of the Year? And maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe there's numbers we should dig into. But when you just watch him play and watch the numbers he puts up, I don't care if they come in losses like they're supposed to. He went to the worst team in the league. When you watch him play, it's one of those where, like, if he doesn't win it, 10 years from now, we're all going to look like idiots. You know what I mean? Like, how could this guy not be the Rookie of the Year?
You got a mouse in your pocket?
Just the voters,
okay,
will look like idiots.
No French pun intended.
And I think, I mean, again, I have no. This might just be quote, my feeling based on vibes. I haven't done a straw poll like our friend Tim Bontemps does with the MVP, but based on vibes, I think if it was taken now, Victor would win it. I didn't think that. I didn't think that a month ago, but I think that now. I mean, it's just a vibes thing.
Well, maybe it's a good thing if he doesn't win it, because he wants these accolades, and it drives him, it fuels him, and as he said after that Milwaukee game, it motivates him. It's what did he say? It's want to make a statement from now on.
Every game after this is a statement.
The more he gets snubbed, the more motivated he'll be. So it may be a good thing.
And look, he leads all rookies in scoring. He leads all rookies in rebounding. He leads all rookies in steals. He leads all rookies plus the entire NBA in blocks. And in any other year, that would be enough. Chet, the reason I don't like having these discussions is that you have to, when you decide you think one guy should be the Rookie of the Year, it starts to sound like you think the other guy is trash and garbage, and that isn't true at all. Chet's amazing. He's great. Oklahoma City's great. But like I said, leads in blocks, leads in rebounds, leads in steals, leads the entire NBA in block shots, leads in scoring. Like any other year, he's your runaway Rookie of the Year favorite. Chet's close in a lot of those, but I think he's somehow, at least in some public, I don't know how the voters are going to vote, but in terms of public perception, I think he gets a boost for playing for a better team. And I don't know that that's exactly fair. If you put Victor on that team, like, what would that look like? So there are all different ways you can break it down. There are all different little thought exercises you could do. Like if Oklahoma City could trade Chet for Victor right now, would they do it? Heck yes, they would. So maybe that should tell you something. If you take Chet off that Oklahoma City team, what are they? They're probably still a playoff team. If you take Chet off that Oklahoma City team and put Victor in his place, they're probably the favorites in the entire West. So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it. And, maybe if we'd have thought ahead, we should have had like an Oklahoma City writer to come on and argue Chet's case, because he can probably do that better than I can. A lot of it
For God's sake, there's 40 games left. We're not. Oh,
we have to.
We have to be crazy.
Look, talk about the fourth quarter at Washington again.
Like go ahead. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. You're right. We gotta keep.
Well, I was done
producing the sorghum.
Well, I was done.
Victor also leads rookies in double doubles, 18 to Holmgren's 11, and triple doubles with 1.
Like, to me, it's a runaway. But maybe I've just seen more of Victor than I've seen of Chet, which is another fair point that someone could make at me.
It's probably just changed over the last couple of months, because when they first started, Chet was so much more efficient than Victor.
Yes.
And even with this minutes restriction, you've seen Victor get so much more efficient, so much better, finishing, and his efficiencies have gone up. And then as soon as those numbers start to look a little like it's a runaway, like Jeff said, because you can just the eye test. Victor's so much more fluid. He's just like an alien, like everyone says. And you watch that, and you watch Chet, and he's great. He's a very good player, but he's not Victor. And that's what's going to make Wembanyama the Rookie of the Year.
And Chet right now is being asked to be a role player on his team, whereas Victor's asked to be the head of the snake, and those are two different jobs, and that factors into it as well. I mean, and Victor's, just to go back, Victor's efficiency might be looking better now because of the minutes restriction. I think he's able to play.
Probably true.
A greater percentage of better minutes because there have been fewer of them. So. If you want to draw me into the Rookie of the Year thing, and I really don't care what
the ridiculous theory out there or claim that this minutes restriction thing is costing him this dumb award. It's like you could make what, like you just said, the exact opposite claim, in that the minutes restriction is, first of all, lessening the chance of an injury that would hurt his Rookie of the Year chance. Because if he re-injures the ankle, well, that keeps him on the sideline, and that helps Chet's case and not Victor's. And what you just said about how it might not be a coincidence that his per minute stuff is getting better with fewer minutes. He's got to make the most of his 6 minutes a quarter, as opposed to the 7 or 8 he had before. So all of this, you could look back at the end of this epic Rookie of the Year race, which is so compelling to so many, and say that the month he spent on minutes restrictions turned out to help his case. You never know.
The other thing I could, just a little tidbit to point out, there had been some confusion about the 65 games thing. This year there's a 65 game minimum to be eligible for MVP and all NBA. It came up last night because Joel Embiid is sort of teetering with not being able to make that 65 games. And if he doesn't, he's not eligible to be the MVP. That does not apply to Rookie of the Year. I confirmed that with the NBA last week. That does not apply to Rookie of the Year. So Victor sitting out back-to-backs, if that causes him not to get to 65 games, does not affect his eligibility for the Rookie of the Year vote. So just to clarify that for all the folks at home who are listening and subscribing.
Listening in a car.
Well, they might be listening in their car park in their driveway. Sometimes you're listening to something that's so compelling that when you come home to your driveway, you stay in the car and finish it out instead of going into your horrible children. Not that I know that from I don't know that firsthand or anything. I just guessing.
Speaking of proud fathers, can I tell just a tidbit, a story about Victor's dad that some of the listeners at home in the driveway on the parkway. Why do you drive on a parkway and park in a driveway? They might find this funny. I laughed very long and hard about this last night at the the Wells Fargo Arena in Philadelphia. After I got off the SEPTA, went in there. I love Philly, as Tom does as well. But we sit baseline at the Wells Fargo Arena, and last night Felix Wembanyama, who's a very nice gentleman, doesn't say much to the media, wants no media attention.
Let me
respect that. Go ahead.
Does he wear like an Adidas bucket hat?
Yes, he was.
Yes, that's his thing. Yeah.
I almost feel bad telling this story because I'm ruining his ability to go incognito. It always cracks me up. He sits sort of near us at the Frost Bank Center too, and the amount of people who just don't even give him a second look it always cracks me up. He does not look like someone who's trying to present himself as the father of perhaps the greatest and maybe one of the richest to be basketball stars of his generation. But anyway, he doesn't sit courtside very often. He had a courtside seat last night in Philadelphia, and he was sitting by himself, and there was these two younger bro, you know, these two kids from Philadelphia who look like just guys you see down at the cheesesteak place. You know, they're very excited to be there. They're watching the NBA. They've got a front row seat, and one of them turns over to Felix at one point, and for some reason this caught my eye. And you see the kid. He's probably 22, 23. He asks Felix a question, and Felix nods his head. And then I can't see what the kid is asking him, but Felix looks at him, and you can see his mouth say Victor Wembanyama, and it kind of nod his head. And the kid and his friend just freak out, and they start taking selfies, and they start going crazy. Like, you are the dad of Victor Wembanyama. And it was just like the look of just quiet satisfaction on Mr. Wembanyama's face was kind of amazing. I can't imagine, first of all, I can't imagine having kids, but being the dad of Victor Wembanyama and just being able to sit there and say, yeah, that guy that everyone is just gasping, marveling at, whatever, like just to be able to sit there and say, yeah, that's my kid. And it was just so matter of fact, like I said.
Being Philly fans, I'm surprised they weren't like, Joel Embiid just got 70 on your son.
This was in the first half. I see. Yeah,
it's just 24 on him in the first quarter, but
right. But it's the Wembanyama family very they don't draw attention to themselves. Seems like they're always kind of quiet, kind of enjoy the whole deal. But just that just made me laugh so hard to see him kind of look over there and say Victor Wembanyama, and just the immediate freak out of these kids who
my early experience with Mr. Wembanyama is like on some of these first trips of the year, I kept noticing the same guy in a bucket hat like on a lot of my flights to different different Spurs games, different out of town games. And when I finally realized who it just kind of dawned on me, why is he on the same flights as a sports writer? Like, shouldn't he be on a charter or something? But that's also been part of the charm of Victor's parents, is they travel like, regular hockey moms, Yeah.
They definitely travel like sports writers, because you see them on, and I'm not sure anybody's informed them about airline miles or points, because those of us who travel on different airlines tend to see them on a wide variety of airlines. Not first class.
Yeah, you've got to consolidate your airlines a little bit. Because they need the miles. How else will they be able to travel on vacation?
Maybe they'll learn. Maybe they'll get there. Maybe they'll get up to silver someday. Silver.
You remember a long time ago, there was like years in a row, like 10 years in a row, every so often, Pop would want me to, or invite me to ride the charter. Like when there's bad weather somewhere in Philadelphia to somewhere, I don't understand why you don't just ride the charter with me. And there's 100 reasons for it. And I would have to explain that to him every year. And then one time we're like, and plus I like my air miles. And Pop looked at me like puzzled for a second. And then oh yeah, I remember those. And I just decided that must be the point where you've made it in life, where you just forget that air miles even exist. Like you can just fly yourself anywhere you want to go, even have to think about it. So
he's out of touch. He had me pegged for a vacation in the Bahamas when he missed a few games.
Two things about Tom Orsborn coming back onto the beat after his well-deserved couple of days off when Jeff was in the first half. It was Greg Popovich asking Tom how the Bahamas were. And also the other night in Washington with Trey Jones coming out for his post-game interview in the loudest, furriest, like it's combination crazy colors. And I'm sure this was a very popular fashion designer that I'm just oblivious to. But it's one of those where the sweater is very furry. It looks like one of those Furbies, but like 6 different colors, all very bright colors. and just huge. And Trey comes out to do his interview, and he says hello to Tom. He's always very nice to Tom. And I said, man, we dodged a bullet. And Trey said, what? I said, if you would have seen Tom yesterday, it would have been awkward because Tom was wearing the exact same thing that you have on. And Trey found that quite amusing. The Spurs love Tom's fashion sense, I think.
Yeah.
Including Devontae Graham.
Devontae Graham, taking pity on me and offering to give me some shoes.
Okay. Well, I guess that's where we're going to end up here. Talking about Tom's sweaters, his shoes. Devontae Graham might order him something. You said you do not want Jordans, Tom. You want dress shoes.
Yeah. Something something low key that can be of use,
Well, first of all, you'd never accept shoes from an NBA player.
I'd give them to I'd give
just like Jeff could never accept a ride on the Charger because that would be conflict of interest, all kinds of stuff.
Plus, I want my miles.
Plus, you want your miles. But it's nice that people think about you in that way. Like Devontae Graham wants to improve your look, and who among us doesn't want to improve from week to week, day to day, until we see you the next time on the Spurs Insider? Take care of each other. Keep it real.